So in previous sessions, we have focused on how the Entra users groups, external users, licenses, self-password reset, RBAC roles, uh, these work. And now, and also with Entra roles, now we would be focusing on how do we manage Azure subscription and governance. Uh, so what services Azure is providing to manage Azure subscriptions and govern those. అంటే సింపుల్ లాంగ్వేజ్లో చెప్పడానికి ట్రై చేస్తే యాజ్ ఐ టోల్డ్ మీ మనం మీరు ఎప్పుడైనా మనం ఏదైనా రీసోర్స్ క్రియేట్ చేస్తున్నాం అంటే స్టోరేజ్ అకౌంట్ వర్చువల్ మెషిన్ యాప్ సర్వీస్ కుబర్నెటీస్ వాట్ ఎవర్ ఇట్ ఈస్ అ డిస్క్ సింపుల్ వర్చువల్ నెట్వర్క్ ఇదంతా ఇట్స్ జస్ట్ ఏ సింపుల్ అండర్స్టాండింగ్ కోసం. In reality, what will have organization will have multiple devices for multiple purposes in multiple configurations. Okay. So ఒక సబ్స్క్రిప్షన్ పాయింట్ ఆఫ్ వ్యూ చెప్తే సబ్స్క్రిప్షన్ ఇస్ ఎ బిల్లింగ్ అకౌంట్ రైట్. ఓకే, అన్లెస్ యూ హ్యావ్ ఎ సబ్స్క్రిప్షన్ యూ వోంట్ బి ఏబుల్ టు క్రియేట్ రిసోర్సెస్. ఇఫ్ యూ ఆర్ నాట్ ఇన్ ఎ పొజిషన్ టు క్రియేట్ రిసోర్సెస్ దెన్ యూ కాంట్ కన్జ్యూమ్ ది సర్వీసెస్. మేమీ చేయలేదు ఎజోర్ మీద. సో ఎజోర్ సబ్స్క్రిప్షన్ కావాలి అని అంటే ఒక బిల్లింగ్ అకౌంట్ ఉండాలి. బిల్లింగ్ అకౌంట్ అంటే ఇన్ సింపుల్ లాంగ్వేజ్ యూ షుడ్ ప్రొవైడ్ ద క్రెడిట్ కార్డ్ డీటెయిల్స్ సో దట్ ది ఎజోర్ ఆర్ ది సిఎస్పి ప్రొవైడర్ క్యాన్ చార్జ్ ఆన్ దట్ బిల్లింగ్ అకౌంట్ పాయింట్ ఆఫ్ వ్యూ. సో దేర్ విల్ బి డిఫరెంట్ బిల్లింగ్ అకౌంట్స్ ఫర్ డిఫరెంట్ పర్పసెస్. ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ ఒక హోటల్ తీసుకున్నా కూడా, ఒక బిగ్ 4 స్టార్ 5 స్టార్ హోటల్ తీసుకున్నా కూడా దే విల్ బ్రేక్ డౌన్ ద డిపార్ట్మెంట్స్. ఒక రెస్టారెంట్ విల్ బి ఎ డిఫరెంట్ వన్, ఏ బార్ పబ్ విల్ బి ఎ డిఫరెంట్ వన్. ఓకే, అదేంటది ఈ ఈవెంట్స్ అవుతున్న ఈవెంట్ రిలేటెడ్ అంతా ఒకదానికి. అండ్ ఈ రూమ్స్ కన్నిటికి ఒకటి అలాగా డివైడ్ చేస్తారు కదా, బిల్లింగ్ అకౌంట్స్ మార్చేస్తారు. కంపెనీ సింగిల్ కంపెనీ పేరు మీద బెటర్ అలాగా. సేమ్ థింగ్ ఒక ఆర్గనైజేషన్ లో అప్లికేషన్స్ అన్ని రన్ అవుతున్నప్పుడు మల్టిపుల్ అప్లికేషన్స్ ఉంటాయి, బి అప్లికేషన్స్ ఉంటాయి. అంటే బిజినెస్ టు బిజినెస్ ఆపరేషన్స్ చేసుకోవడానికి, బిజినెస్ టు కస్టమర్స్ కి ఆపరేషన్స్ సి అని అంటాం. ఈ టైప్ ఆఫ్ అప్లికేషన్స్ ఉంటాయి. ఇంటర్నల్ అప్లికేషన్స్ ఉంటాయి. దాని బిల్డింగ్ ఏంటి, ఏ- ఏది ప్రొడక్షన్, ఏది నార్మల్ నాన్ ప్రాడ్, ఏది టెస్టింగ్ కోసం వాడుతున్నాం, అసలు ఎంత కన్జ్యూమ్ అవుతుంది, ఇవన్నీ దాన్ని బట్టి సబ్స్క్రిప్షన్స్ మారిపోతాయి. ఏ సబ్స్క్రిప్షన్స్ ఏ మేనేజ్మెంట్ గ్రూప్ లో రావాలా అనేది కూడా మారుతుంది. సో ఇన్ ప్రీవియస్ సెషన్ ఐ హావెంట్ ఎక్స్ప్లెయిన్డ్ ఆన్ హౌ మేనేజ్మెంట్ గ్రూప్ విల్ బి దేర్, రైట్? సో హైరార్కీ ఇలా ఉంటుంది. దెర్ విల్ బి డిఫరెంట్ మేనేజ్మెంట్ గ్రూప్స్. దట్ ఈస్ జస్ట్ ఆ రిసోర్స్ గ్రూప్ ఎలా ఉందో విచ్ విల్ హ్యావ్ lot of resources under that. Grouping that resources will be called as resource group అయితే, grouping the subscriptions, set of subscriptions, is a management group. Okay, so in a management group you can have a list of subscriptions or a subset of MG. ఇంకొక మినీ ఎంజీ ఉంటుంది మేనేజ్మెంట్ గ్రూప్, అందులో దాంట్లో సబ్స్క్రిప్షన్స్ ఉండొచ్చు. ఆ సబ్స్క్రిప్షన్స్ లో రిసోర్స్ గ్రూప్ ఉంటుంది, రిసోర్స్ గ్రూప్ కింద రిసోర్సెస్ ఉంటుంది. సో దిస్ ఇస్ అ లాజికల్ లేయర్. Management group and resource group is a logical layer. Resource group is a logical grouping of resources, and management group is a logical grouping of subscriptions, or one or more subscriptions and one or more management groups under it. So there will be a root MG by default, which we call it as tenant root management group. జస్ట్ ఇది ఒక అర్థం చేసుకోవడం కోసమే టెనెంట్ రూట్ మేనేజ్మెంట్ గ్రూప్ ఆర్ టెనెంట్ మేనేజ్మెంట్ గ్రూప్ అని అంటే యూ హ్యావ్ టు అండర్స్టాండ్ దట్ ఈస్ ద పేరెంట్ మేనేజ్మెంట్ గ్రూప్ ఆఫ్ ఆల్ ది అండర్లయింగ్ infrastructure or whatever is the subscriptions and everything. That will be the top level parent అన్నమాట. Under that you will have a list of subscriptions అవ్వచ్చు, under that management groups అవ్వచ్చు. In general, this is how the hierarchy looks like. There will be a tenant management group. Under that, there would be management groups. Under that management group, there could be another set of management groups. And can you imagine how many subscriptions and how many business genres or verticals they have? Under that, they will have subscriptions, one or more subscriptions. And each subscription is giving for a different billing account. You can have the same billing and the same credit card, you can give it for multiple subscriptions, but organizations will tend to actually have different billing accounts and everything. Now, you could subscription in the resource groups, different resource groups ఉండొచ్చు, 10 or 10 ఉండొచ్చు, 100 ఉండొచ్చు, 200 ఉండొచ్చు. Each resource group can have 1,000 resources or whatever it is. So that's how the hierarchy looks like. Now, when we are explaining this, where it is so related, it is related in terms of management and governing. మరి ఇంత హ్యూజ్ ఇన్ఫ్రాస్ట్రక్చర్ ని ఎట్లాగా మేనేజ్ చేస్తాం, ఎట్లా గవర్న్ చేస్తాం, that makes a lot of difference, right? Okay, just like a country which has a very huge population, there will be a different set of norms compared to a country which has a lesser population. So more diverse the population is, more different the governing methods would be. So if you look at the same, how could you relate that with the Azure infrastructure? The purpose of the resources, service types which are being utilized in Azure, ఈ అజూర్ క్లౌడ్లో ఏం యూస్ చేస్తున్నారో సబ్స్క్రిప్షన్స్లో, డిఫరెంట్ మేనేజ్మెంట్ గ్రూప్స్లో, అన్నిట్లోనూ, ఇఫ్ ఇట్ ఈస్ సో డిఫరెంట్, దెన్ యూ నీడ్ టు హ్యావ్ డిఫరెంట్ methodologies to manage it and ensure that the users, whoever are using the services, సో ఇప్పుడు సపోజ్ ఒక సబ్స్క్రిప్షన్లో ఎక్కువ డేటాబేస్ రిలేటెడ్ అప్లికేషన్స్ ఉన్నాయి అని అంటే, you'll end up having the team who are managing those infrastructure of that subscription are mostly of a DB guys, or that is a more of a data centric application. That is like a, that's where you will see data, lot of data scientists and engineers who would be working on that kind of subscription with that kind of resources and services and all that. So the governing method and the way you wanted to implement role-based access, everything changes, right? Okay, if you have any questions, you can type it in chat section there. I could see one question. Is tenant management group is like a folder which will, so tenant is like a parent, yes. So if you take a great grandfather, would he be the person top of the hierarchy of the tree? Yes. Okay, there will be definitely above, there will be another set of generation would be there. But my point is, in your Azure environment, there should be some root tree that where from that is way. So we term generally that as the root tenant root subscription, tenant root management group, or root management group in simple language, or we call it as, instead of management group, we can call also MG, and we say root MG. Okay. So when we have that kind of huge infrastructure, there are certain things which is helping. Azure is giving certain services and certain features which will help you to manage that infrastructure and govern that infrastructure with certain norms and all that. The first one we are seeing here is Azure policy. So in Azure 104, it is mostly focused on a built-in policies point of view than on the custom policies. But let me show you in general how that looks like. So if I go to portal.azure.com. I'll also go to Azure policy. I'll type here policy. Now this is the page. Policy is the page. You can search from here, or you may have it from favorites, or you can go to all services and you can even search from there. So mostly everyone prefers to search from here, from this search dashboard, which you can see, and you select it. And what you can see here is the policy. Under the policy, you have definitions, assignments, exemptions, remediations, all these things. Now, what is an Azure policy? It helps in the name itself saying that ఒక ఆర్గనైజేషన్ సెట్, ఒక ఆర్గనైజేషన్ స్టాండర్డ్స్ ఎన్ఫోర్స్ చేయడానికి to assess the compliance at scale. So what is compliance? Which is following the norms, which is following the organizational standards, which are not following the organizational standards. Because there would be thousands of virtual machines, and you would want to know which one is connected to internet, which one is not connected to internet. When you wanted to say that none of the machines should be connected to internet, but there would be, if you would have educated to everyone, just like the countries educate to their citizens, not just to follow the law, not to break the law, then do we need to have law enforcement agencies or organizations? Yes, because we need to monitor what is being breaking, and the organizational standards, to monitor that and correct that. Similarly, Azure policies will help in ఎన్ఫోర్సింగ్ ఒక ఇలాగే ఫాలో అవ్వాలని చెప్పేసి యూజర్స్ కి ఆ ఎన్విరాన్మెంట్ లో ప్రతి ఆర్గనైజేషన్స్ కి డిఫరెంట్ రిక్వైర్మెంట్స్ ఉంటాయి, డిఫరెంట్ వే. సో ద వే దే సెటప్ దే ఆర్గనైజేషన్ స్టాండర్డ్స్ విల్ బి వెరీ డిఫరెంట్. బట్ దే ఆర్ ట్రైంగ్ టు సే దట్ ఇది యూ హ్యావ్ టు ఫాలో దిస్ ఆర్గనైజేషనల్ స్టాండర్డ్స్. అండ్ ఏంటి ఎవరు మిస్ చేస్తున్నారు, ఏ రిసోర్సెస్ మిస్ చేస్తున్నాయి, అవన్నీ చెక్ చేసుకోవడానికి వెరీ కంఫర్టబుల్ ఫ్రీ సర్వీస్ విచ్ ఇస్ బీయింగ్ ప్రొవైడెడ్ బై Azure. So it's a very powerful one to actually provide governance. And me interview point of view lo లేకపోతే మీ experience point of view lo, you can actually portray that you have a very good Azure policy experience in terms of governing these in Azure cloud infrastructure. And so what are the main things which are involved in a policy is what you have to look at. So generally, there are concepts which are involved in this uh, policy point of view. First thing is definition. Second is assignment. Third is exemption. Okay. What is a definition? You are defining what should be the policy looks like. Okay. Like in constitution, or you will, so we in countries, we the either the Supreme Court or some the organizational PMO office, they would, everyone would ఒక గవర్నమెంట్ ఆర్డర్ రిలీజ్ చేస్తారు. ఓకే, దే విల్ పాస్ సర్టన్ లాస్ విచ్ హ్యావ్ టు, దే విల్ డిఫైన్ దట్ హౌ దట్ స్ట్రక్చర్ వుడ్ బి, అండ్ దే విల్ బి పాసింగ్ దట్ ఎవ్రీథింగ్ టు ది ఎంటైర్ కంట్రీ, where the citizens have to follow that, right? So the same way here, you're defining Azure policy, and the Azure policy you will define it in JSON template point of view. So I'll show you how that defines, but you will write the conditions, everything. Like a virtual machine, if it is there, it should not have a public IP. If it is having a public IP, then there is a effect which you have to, the policy effect has to do. Either go and just track, audit. Like if you see here, there are 9 non-compliant services. Just identify that is what they're trying to say. Or they're also trying to say, in case if you're it's not about auditing, not identifying it, but it is about denying it. That means if anyone is creating a virtual machine with a public IP, and my organization is saying that not to have public IPs, then I will have to deny that provisioning of virtual machine. The next thing is modify. In case if the virtual machines are being created with a public IP, my policy will go and remove the public IP. Instead of denying the provisioning, the policy will remove the uh, public IP. So this is how there are different policy effects like that. For example, if you take another service where storage accounts should have, or virtual machines should have extension installed. Let's take a virtual machine itself. I want to install extension. When you wanted to create a machine, you can actually have some extra extensions to your machine so that it can do certain functionalities and all that. So if you are users, whoever are creating machines, if there is no that mention extension, like assume that Microsoft anti-malware is an extension, which has to be created when any user in your organization is creating a Windows virtual machine. Now, in that kind of case, you can use a deploy if not exist policy, which will install an anti-malware solution in case if that machine is created without an extension of that. So this way, we are ensuring certain level of attacks, certain level of protection to our resources, certain level of understanding uh, and confidence we have on our infrastructure. It's as simple as you would have if your house is having 5 to 10 doors and there are different keys, you would actually keep it in a proper, safer manner, an organized manner to recognize where your keys are. And in case if you leave them open, you would always be having an eye on what is coming in and what is going out of that house, right? The same way, organizations who are right now running and they are generating millions or billions of dollars revenue from that, their applications, they would equally want that level of granular control over the entire what is coming in and what is going out of their environment, how someone is being accessing and everything. So policy helps in achieving this. Now, definition, as I mentioned, you are just defining using a JSON template. And once you define it, now you can assign that policy to a resource group, to a subscription, to a management group. So you see at what scope you wanted to assign. So just like a country or the entire world to a specific country or to a country specific state, under a specific state, a specific district, or under the specific district, a specific town, where the rules gets applied. That is scope, right? The same way where the policies gets applied. Is it to a resource group? Is it to a subscription or is it to MG? And when you actually say that this so and so specific JSON has been definition has been assigned to an RG, that becomes an assignment. It is assigned to subscription, it becomes an assignment, but you are assigning it to a specific scope. That means you're saying that this policy should be following under this resource group or under this subscription. Any machines that are getting created should be having no public IP. Just an example I was trying to say. Now let's see what policies are there in general. If I look at a policy definition, let me generally show you some things. So there are a lot of policy definitions which you could see here. And here you can see under which there's a tenant root MG. Under that we have a VRK MG. Under that we have a subscription. Under that subscription, you can even select resource groups while you are assigning and all that. But we have definition types. We have policy, we have initiative. Now, I will talk about what is a policy difference and initiative difference slowly after we completing, just showing how generally it looks like. So there are policy types. You have custom, built-in, static. We usually mostly use built-in. That means developed by Azure static also. But static is not majorly used at this point of time. My point is, if you are defining your own policies other than what Microsoft has built, then it becomes a custom. That is what you have it in your subscription or your environment. No one will have that one custom ones. It is based on how you develop those. Now, built-in ones are Microsoft given. And categories, what all policies based on services, we have different category of policies. Now, let me look at here. Let me take virtual machine. So I'll select virtual or machines, compute. Okay. Virtual. So if you look at virtual machine and virtual machine scale set should have encryption at host enabled. Now that is not needed. May look like a huge one. I want to make it as simple as only approved VM extensions should be installed. Okay. Now, if you look at the description, this policy governs virtual machine extensions that are not approved should not be installed in the machine. Only approved ones should be installed. Now, if you look at a definition, how it looks like a JSON code, and just try to duplicate the definition by clicking on duplicate definition. We wait for 2, 3, 5 seconds. You will be able to see at the bottom of this page a JSON template which will be showing up. There it is. Now it is saying here, this is generally how the policy definition looks like. And in custom policies, you will end up writing this JSON policies. Now, if you look at here, indexed is the mode and the type of what it is looking is virtual machines with extensions. And are those extensions coming in the approved extensions list in general? Okay, this parameter is nothing but uh, you are giving inputs. What are the approved extensions should be. Okay. So the policy is written in logic in this way that look at all the virtual machine extensions. The type resource type is nothing but service and trying to see whether those are coming under the for a virtual machine which taken given a taken any specific virtual machine, does the extensions which are inside it are coming under the approved extensions? If not, if the extension is not an approved extension. So here we mentioned the effect, the policy effect. I was explaining that same. So what is the policy action it has to take? Audit, deny, modify, deploy if not exists. Based on these things that has to take. So now here we are saying it's an audit. That means just see whether they are non-compliant or not. If they are not having the approved extensions, mark it as red and non-compliant. If they are having approved extensions, then it is give it green tick that they are good enough. That's how it works. So this is a definition. You defined it. Did you assign this definition to anything else? No. Now if you click on assign policy, that's where you're assigning at what scope. You wanted to assign it to a resource subscription, then select the subscription. If you wanted to select to the management group, you can select the management group. I want to select the subscription. Under the subscription, I want to select the resource group. So that means if that policy is not going to get applied to entire subscription or entire management group like that. It only gets applied to the resource group under that. Now, if you are selecting not resource group and all, uh, you're selecting the subscription, then the policy gets applied to the entire subscription, not to just that any resource group, entire subscription. No, it's not a resource subscription, but the entire management group, then the entire management group, this policy will get applied. And once it's been assigned, you can go into the assignments and you can check. Suppose this is you can check what is the compliance. How would I able to check that? Once I go into the assignments and select and search for the appropriate policy assignment name, and I look for the compliance, I'll be able to get the compliance details, whether which one is following the norms, which one is not following the norms, and everything. And based on that, I will go inside that one and I'll check which is the non-compliant resource, and I will contact the appropriate owner or the user who have created it or who is responsible for it, and I'll tell why this is being in non-compliant state, why this is not following this policy norm. Could you please follow this? If it is a deny one, your users will come back and say that, see, I'm not able to create so and so. Now, when you go to the postmortem and check why that error is coming, it will share that so and so specific policy is blocking the deployment. Now, then you will educate that user that, see, you're trying to create a resource where our organization is trying to follow certain norms and you are not following that one unless you do that in one. Now, in certain cases, we need to give exemptions, right? We can't follow everywhere the same law. just because it has to be applied across countries. There are certain places where the law may not be applicable because of certain exemptions we have to provide, and that's where the exemptions terminology or the feature comes in. Where after you have assigned it to the entire management group, there would be certain subscriptions you would not want the policy to be applied. There will be certain subscriptions or certain resource groups where you don't want to exempt. So when you don't want to exempt it, you will select that this exemption should not be there for 60 days, 90 days, like that. And once you select and say for that period of time, that policy won't be applied to that scope level. Now, there is one thing which I said that I'll speak about it later on. What is the policy or what is initiative? Policy, what does policy mean? Is like a simple definition, right? Definition. Now, if you have what is initiative, just like resource group or management group, it will have multiple definitions under it. So not just one policy, just definitions. You may have another initiative under it. That initiative can hold multiple definitions. Okay. And that initiative can hold another initiative, and that could have multiple definitions. Now, why is this is the way? Because you understand that this one again. Okay. I explained you that how to create a policy definition, means how a policy definition looks like and works, right? Now your assumption should be like, I will have 1,000 policies in my organization. Now, will you go to each policy assignment or multiple policy assignments? That now policy definitions are 1,000. Now, that may be when the one definition is being applied to one subscription, another subscription RG, another subscription RG, another subscription, like that. You have 100 subscriptions. Under that, you would have applied to 4, 5, one policy definition. Other policy definition to 50 subscriptions. Now imagine the complexity. So the policy definitions may be 1,000. The assignments will end up having 10,000 assignments or 20,000 assignments, something like that. How would you monitor the compliance? I showed you, I mentioned that to check the compliance, you have to go inside that assignment, click on the assignment, click on view compliance, and where you will see there, and there you will see. Now, how tough that is, right? If you have a lot of policies. Now, that's when the initiative comes in. Okay. We'll create an initiative which will have a group of policies like virtual machine policies or dev environment policies, prod environment policies. And you will check from there which are the resources which are non for following the production standards, which are the ones which are not following the dev standards, which are the not following the virtual machine standards. So it's much more easier to track and from an initiative and all that. And that's where we have another section specifically on compliance to look at, which providing the getting the compliance report of all the policies which you have assigned and looking at it pretty much easily. Now here there's the filters which you have. Now custom policy, the ones which you have created for yourself and all that, and based on the services. So how do you try to research here? The way you need to research here is go based on the service. Now you wanted to look at storage account, type storage and look for the policies which are there generally for a storage. Now you wanted to not storage but for network. See what policies are there for the network and generally go there, select that, click on duplicate definition and try to read it. The structure would be very simple, policy structure. The logic will be written always in the policy rule with an if and then condition. If you have so and so resource, then do so and so. Okay. And these are the parameters which are going to give. So this way you will understand. And so there is a class tutorials also. Try to go ahead and create a policy, and it's pretty much simple the way I've shown it, how you assign it, and then see whether, so you assign something here. If you see specific type of virtual machines only you have to create of family size. The other set of sizes of VM sizes should not be allowed. Then you apply this policy, assign this policy. You have to try to create a machine, and you have to get blocked by the policy that this is not allowed. And if you're following that norm, then you have to be allowed to create a machine. So you have to try to follow that method of creating. Now the next part is, so they are hope everyone are clear with policies. In case if you have any questions, you can post in the chat section. I'll say it's pretty much important. Most of the cyber security uh, or securing their environment, they will follow policy. Now, how extensively you are following based on this, the complexity will change the organizations. Now, the next concept is resource locks. You want to lock your resources from certain activities or something. Now, let's take, you have any resources here? No. So let me create one resource, create a virtual network. Now that is under the resource group. Now I'll open a subscription. I'll open a resource group, and I will open that resource. So network got created. I'll open pay as you go subscription. I'll open the AKS RG, which is there in this pay as you go. Okay. Now everything will have the resource logs. Okay. Search here. Now there are two types of logs. They will ask you questions on like this. What are resource logs, or how would I ensure the purpose of this used logs? There will be some purposes that they'll ask that purpose, and what for that, what can we use in Azure and all that. So there are two types of logs, read only and delete. Now, if you don't want your services to be you only wanted any one users to go and only just access those but not change any configurations and all that, that is when you'll keep read only. Okay, if you want not them users to be, users can have permissions to do anything but they can't delete it and all that, uh, then you can keep the lock type as delete. Okay, so if you are assigning a resource lock at a subscription, understand that people can't delete any resources under that subscription. If you have a delete lock at a resource group level, then users under that resource group level who are accessing that resource group can't be able to delete any services under that. Similarly, if you are actually assigning a delete lock to a network which, or specific resource instance, then every resource, whether it's a virtual network machine, whatever it is, disk, AKS, cluster, everything, you can will have resource locks as a feature, and you're selecting a delete. That means you can't delete that unless you go ahead and delete the lock. So delete lock. So I added it to a subscription. This is resource group is coming under that subscription, right? So I'll first try to delete this resource group. Now, what is it been saying? The resource group AKS RG is logged and can't be deleted. Okay. I don't need to have a delete log to my resource group, but even then I have it to the subscription. That means it's a parent one. Okay. That means it is applies to everything under that. So the resource group is coming under that subscription. So it has been logged. So if I want to allow deletion, I have to delete the log and post the deletion of the log. That is when I can go ahead and try to delete the so they are logged because it is not refreshed. I have to just refresh this, then click on delete. So the virtual network got deleted. We can refresh this and you see that virtual network is not there anymore. So that's how the delete logs work. So if you want to configure changes or you don't want your users to configure any changes and all that, they just need to access and all that, then you keep read only. That is what is resource logs. Now, what is tags? Tags are every resource, whatever it is, just like logs, we'll have tags. You have subscription tags, you have tags for resource groups. Similarly, you will have tags for resources. Okay. Now you can, if you see the tag name, department, okay, developers, let's keep like that. Okay. App name, application one, owner, ABC at the rate uh, employee one at the rate abc.com. What happens? So if that specific resource group or wherever it is, I could next time go and check what are the tags which are there based on that to a resource or not, based on what I can go and contact appropriately. This is for that and all that. It also helps me in tracking for the billing, how much a owner, a specific user is spending, specific department is spending, and all that. So tags really helps a lot in terms of governing and all that. So that's about it. Manage resource groups. So as I mentioned, resource groups are nothing but this one. How many resource groups you can have? You can have any number of resource groups, and there will be some good number of limitation how much you can have it on a resource group, the resources and all that. But you don't get charged for resource group and all. So I've just explained how the resource groups previously itself, how they are grouping of resources becomes the resource groups and subscriptions. These are the subscriptions. Each subscription will end up having a billing account. Now, if you see, I have to pay certain amount so that I can avoid that active state of active status is right now. Use status to update in progress. So if you're not paying it, it will become inactive. And if it is inactive, then you can't use that. Okay. So this is how the invoices you can go and check and billing and all that. Based on the permissions you have in a subscription, you would be able to access subscription level things and all that. If the organization is not allowing you to check, make you check that and all that with that no access, you would not be able to see that. Subscriptions come under the management groups. So not every organization will have management groups hierarchy. If there are only 5, 6 subscriptions, then it is fine. But if your organization is having like 15, 20 and all that, you'll end up seeing them divided into management groups and all that. Just like the way, so how do you check management groups? You select management groups, search for that here in search bar, and you would be able to see here the tenant root group or root management group. Under that you have one management group. Under that you have two management groups, non-prod and testing. One is in this management group, one is in this management group. You can have multiple subscriptions or multiple RGs along simultaneously everything. But that is what is managing resource groups and all that. Now, in the next session, I also mentioned about management groups and all that. The next session, we'll actually talk about how do we configure cost, alerts, budgets, Azure Advisors. So in short form, Azure Advisor helps in giving you recommendations how you should utilize your infrastructure, how much is your cost incurred, what's your security, how you reliable is your infrastructure, how you can increase your performance of your application. So it will give you a lot of recommendations. If you go into the recommendation section, it will tell that, see, this virtual machine which you're having, it's not so huge. Sorry, it is not having so much CPU utilization. Try to, instead of 4 CPU, bring it to 2 CPU so that your billing will come down from 10,000 rupees or 20,000 rupees per month to 10,000 or half of it, whatever it is. So that's how it will give recommendations. Now it will tell security, hey, your services which are there in your subscriptions or resource groups, whatever it is, they're not having so and so specific. Because of that, you may lead to certain level of threats and attacks. Reliability. Okay. So any ones which you can automate in terms of so it's like this. You wanted to check any alerts which are getting created for your infrastructure and all that. So you can configure the notifications, all those through what through SMS. You can get notified, or your users can get notified through email. They can get notified. So there are different ways they can do, or they will perform certain remediations like taking next actions, set of next steps to perform it. Operational excellence. So there are different things advise as an advice. So fin analytics or so there are right now there are jobs, FinOps we call. There are operational engineers in cloud, which we term them as FinOps guys, who will help the management, the leadership team to be aware of how much is being incurred, how much utilization per user, how much utilization per application, how much application per department, what is their gradual growth in the last 5 years, how the applications when they are being increased, what is it, how much. So all this data will can be generated, and so for that they configure budget alerts and all that. So if some budget is being exceeded or some budget is being met already 80%, so they will notify the user or they'll notify the department whatsoever, and next set of actions should be taken to discuss why it has been increased or uh, why there is exceeded, something like that. So all that things comes from the advisors. So this is mostly what we have so far. In the next sessions, we will try to touch on storage, all these topics. So thank you. If you have any questions.